Hello, my name is Justin. Today I'm going to give you a quick rundown on the Fuzzy A.I add-on for Universal Fighting Engine. Now I'm not going to go through too many things on template creations. I'll just sort of show you through the basics of Fuzzy A.I, some of the components, some of the main areas to look at and that sort of thing. But yeah, in another video I will show you how to create templates, and that'll be hopefully uploaded at the same time as this one. Right, so to start, we'll go into the global options. So go into your global options, and then you'll see the AI options right here. Switch it from from random AI to Fuzzy AI. Then you'll get all the default Fuzzy AI options. Now, I also recommend everyone to just click the question mark, and you can bring up a browser, and you'll see, all our wiki on all this sort of stuff. Daniel spent a lot of time updating the wiki for Fuzzy AI, so there's a lot there. One of the links is actually broken, but hopefully that'll be fixed in the next update. Now, multi-core support is exactly what it sounds like, and there's again more details on the wiki. Persistent behavior is basically if you want the AI to behave the same way in successive rounds. So say for round 1 you might have a certain behavior, then round 2 you might have a certain behavior. If that's what you want, you'd untick it. But if you want them to be the same, or the same sort of instruction sets, then you'd leave that on. Your default difficulty is pretty straightforward. What default difficulty the game starts with, and as you can see here, I've got a choice from very easy right to impossible. But in my settings, I've actually only got 3 of them. So if I chose impossible or very easy or very hard, it actually wouldn't work. I think it defaults to the closest one to it, or it defaults to normal or something like that. Anyway, and within each difficulty you can set what defines its difficulty. So the time between the decisions and the actions, how strict it adheres to the rules, the aggressiveness, and the combat efficiency. All pretty straightforward sort of definitions, I guess you could call it. Now, the startup behavior, I'll explain more about what these actually are later, but if you, for instance, for the easy difficulty, the enemy is defensive, and for the difficulty it's hard. In your game, for the hard difficulty it's aggressive. In your game, it may be that the easier characters are more aggressive because you've got a defensive game. It's easier to be defensive, so you'd have the other way around. You'd have that to be aggressive, if that makes sense. Anyway, more details on that a little bit later. Okay, so the next thing to look at is the character editor. So I've got Robot Kyle here selected. And in the bottom there, the AI instructions. So these are where you assign the behaviors to the character. So we've got aggressive, balanced, defensive. Going back to the global settings, you see how this one, the default is hard. So on the hard difficulty, the startup behavior is aggressive, which means that if we had Robot Kyle, he would start up with this behavior, this aggressive one, which we've got here set as the rushdown aggressive. Now, clicking on that, you can see where all the templates are. They're within UFE add-ons, AI add-ons, templates. Pretty straightforward, and that's where every single one of them are. So we've got a rushdown set. Oops, don't want to select that. We've got mix-ups, we've got grappler, zoning, etc., etc. And these are just sort of the default ones we've provided. You of course can create your own, and which we encourage you to do so. You should, because that would suit your game. So the other thing about the instructions is you'll notice that there's 3 instructions here, and that's because we can switch between them. So within the instruction file for this aggressive one, for instance, we might have a condition that says if the opponent does something, switch to balanced, so it'll switch to this balanced one, or it might say switch to defensive or whatever, and you can switch between them, that sort of thing. And you can use nearly any condition you can think of. A common one is when your health gets below a certain point that you change, and in the other video I will show you how to do that as well. It's really quite simple. Alright, so the last thing to show you is the actual AI editor itself. So this is the meat of the video here, so let's bring this up. So we go into Window, UFE AI Editor, and it brings up a new panel. Let's add that to here. It doesn't really matter where it goes. Usually I'd put it behind Move, but that's okay. And just select a template so we can see it. So let's just go with, doesn't really matter what I choose. Now obviously these 2 options here, show debug info, reaction away, so that'll give you all the info when you play the game. Now the first thing I want to show you are these 2 things, custom rules and predefined rules. They're essentially the same sort of thing, except with the custom you've got more control. You can actually put any rule within the parameters of what we allow, which is quite a lot. And the predefined is sort of the basic, auto move, auto jump, auto attack, auto block, those sort of things. Now, I'm not going to go through these options. They're all pretty self-explanatory, and you'll understand what they are. I will go through something though, and this is, if you expand the generated fuzzy rules, this will show you basically the rule sets that these options are generating, if that makes sense. Or that this selection of predefined rules gives me these fuzzy rules. So, and these are one-line rules, are really easy to sort of parse and understand. So it's basically, if the distance is very close, then move forward. No, it is undesirable. So that's our least preferred option. So or one of the worst preferred options. I think that's even less. If it's close, then we don't want to move forward, sort of thing. And you can see this is what basically that's doing. The numbers in front of each thing here is one of these conditions. That's if you have a look at AI, the AI is open source, so I recommend going into having a look at any of these files. But you'll see that these numbers are used as shortcuts, so it doesn't have to sort of read the whole string and go, oh, that's what that is, or that's what this is. So it knows 22 is distance self. It knows, so we can find another one. 001 is attacking opponent. 017 is attacking current frame data of the opponent. So those sort of things. And there's actually room to add your own in as well if you want to mod Fuzzy A.I, which again we highly recommend you do, because every game's going to be different. You're going to have your own scenarios and situations and your own type of moves that you'd want to deal with, that sort of thing. So that's sort of a quick thing on fuzzy logic, or the fuzzy rules that we generate. But let me show you this one here. With the custom rules, you can generate much more sophisticated fuzzy logic. Let me find something that's a little simpler, and I want to explain. Okay, here we go. This one's a good one. Let's use this one. So everyone should understand a logic statement, like if something, do something. And of course, you can have an or an and condition as well in the if statement. So for instance, in this one, we have if the distance is mid and the health status is healthy, but then we've got an or as well. Or distance is mid and health status is scratched, or distance is far, then projectile is not bad. So basically what it's saying is, obviously we've got, what the reaction is. The condition is projectile is not bad, and that's what this is, projectile not bad. But to get those statements, it's a little bit tricky. So we've got 3 events, and then we've got two conditions in this event and 1 condition in this event. So you'll notice the 3 events are here, 1, 2, 3. They're separated by the 2 or statements. So look at the last one, because it's only got 1 condition. It's easy to look at. So distance, opponent, far. That's what this one should be. Opponent, distance, far. Then the second one is opponent, distance, mid, and health status, scratch. So we've got opponent, distance, mid, and then we've got health status, scratch. Now notice that these 2 conditions together form an AND logic, whereas the 3 separate events form the OR logic. So that's how you can get your AND and OR situations. And again, in the other video, when I show you how to create a template, you'll see this happening. We won't do too much of the AND and OR, but you'll see how, when you create an event, then a condition, that's what creates the AND condition. Or multiple conditions create ANDs, multiple events create ORs. That's probably the easiest way to remember it. Okay, now next. While we're on the generate fuzzy rules and that, let's have a look at the bottom here, the generated fuzzy rules. Now, it starts off usually blank, or it'll actually remember the last one you opened. So, but if I hit refresh, it gives me 54 rules. Now, this actually does nothing other than displaying it to you. So this is what Fuzzy A.I is using as its rule set. And you can go through and sort of look through and go, okay, well, I've got this, I've got that, this is what I wanted, this is what I didn't want, whatever. And then you can, it's basically your own sort of logbook, log tracking of the rules. Now you'll notice the generated rules are the predefined, and at the bottom you'll have excuse me, user rules, and these are what we had up here for the custom rules. So we had 4 rules. I think we might have more than 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, we've got 4 rules this time. Sometimes it gives you more because of how the rules were generated and created, and that's just how it works. But here you can actually see, where was that last one we had? It was the distance projectile is not bad. So I think it was this one here. Yeah, so there's the 2 oars, with the 3 events. So this is projectile mid-far. So so that's the generated fuzzy rules. You'll probably use this a lot if you're making lots of sort of different AI templates and wanting to see how the behavior goes and that sort of thing. All right, so moving on, we've got definitions, and there's not really much I can talk about here because it's very, very self-explanatory. Most of the times you might not want to change it, especially things like, well, I find maybe your desirability you won't change. They're pretty good as it is. And the health I think is also pretty good, but you may want to tweak the ends or the middle depending on how your game works. But these 3 things are probably what you're going to need to change, because that's going to be different for every game. It's your own, like what's very weak in the default UFE might be just too tiny for you. Like very strong here is 0.25, and that's, in some cases that might be still too weak. You might actually want to have that quite high, and 1 or 0.7 or something, I'm not sure. But yeah, that'll be something that you'll have to go through yourself as you go through. And again, these are just definitions. These are just what the AI would use to define what is very weak, what is weak, medium, strong, etc., and then what is close, medium, far. For instance, I found for one of my games I've had to change some of these distances because the gap between close and mid was just too great. So I needed that to be a little bit closer, and very far, was too far, I think it was, for my game. So, and again with the movement speed. So that's the definitions. Pretty straightforward, and when you go through it, it'll make a lot of sense to you. Now, lastly, the advanced options. Again, most of these things is pretty straightforward. Time between decisions, directional padding. Directional padding is basically so that I think it's how fast the AI lets go of a direction. So it's not just sort of tapping for one single frame. So it taps it for 0.1 of a second instead. So this is in seconds, not in frames. So the rule compliance obviously is how strict it is to the rules. The aggressiveness is how much aggressive it is, etc. You generally want to leave most of this stuff, especially the default desirability. But yeah, these time between actions and directional padding you can change off to your needs. Now I'll show you attack options because this is quite cool. Now, these are effectively global options. So if we go back up to the predefined rules, we can see we've got use hit type filters and range filters. What we can do here is I can get rid of range filters, and that grays it out. So what this means is I'm not using them now. It's just going to auto attack regardless of range, and the same for the hit type filters. This will auto block regardless of hit, sort of thing. Now the other options, you won't see attack type filters come up in here, but you will see them in here. So here we go. So he confirm, it's grayed out. Was it attack type filter? Do there. So I'm not sure if you can see. So have a look at here. So you can see, yeah, here we go. Now we've got the attack types. You can filter from projectiles, etc. So this, if I remove that, it wouldn't be looking at projectiles, it'd be looking at any attack from that distance, and it would just, probably not work as much as you want. But you may find some cases you want a more simplistic approach, and that's when you'd use these sort of things. And obviously the gauge filters, damage, range, etc. They all, we did range, but hit confirm type, all that sort of stuff. That all will apply to those appropriate things. Okay, that's pretty much the whole thing. So to finish off, I'll show you the AI playing, and I'll sort of just describe a few things that you can see happening. So pay attention to the side here. So you've basically got your reaction weights. So if I pause it just quickly, so here you can see that Mechanim bot is using the rushdown aggressive AI set, and currently everything's on 0 because she's actually in the middle of a move. But if we go to robot Kyle, he's also using rushdown aggressive, And he's got crouch block being the best option, but he's getting hit at the moment, so he can't crouch block. But he's still trying. As you can see right here, down back. Something worth noting. Oh yeah, sorry, that's why I was pausing it. I was trying to show you the weight of each movement. So basically, you see how we've got 0.28, 0.18, 0.13. They're all quite low values, but still there's a highest value here. So okay, jump forward is, and he jumps forward, and so on and so forth. Now the zeros, obviously you don't want to do that because they're zero. That's not what you want to do. Now, something to keep in mind, look at the side, look at the inputs. It's exactly like, it's performing the exact inputs that you would perform. So our AI, the Fuzzy AI, cannot cheat. It can, however, play really, really good. So just because it can't cheat doesn't mean it's, not going to be hard to beat sometimes. And the reason why is because it has frame perfect execution, so it will be able to do combos that you probably can't do on your own. It's things that are just way too hard to do. But other than that, it won't cheat. So it won't do things like old Street Fighter 2 Guile, where he walked forward and did like a flash kick or a sonic boom, which is impossible to do because you can't charge down or back when walking forward. So it won't do that, but it will. Oh, look at that, she goes through fireballs. I didn't realize. That's excellent. So she probably did that because it went through fireballs too. I'm not sure. Maybe the AI is smart enough to do that. But yeah. So so hopefully this gives you a good overview of the Fuzzy AI, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video I'll make, which is on creating an AI template. And I've got one to create, and I might see if I can create another one or two after that as well. All right, thanks guys. See you later.